Are you ready to lead with impact? Well, friend, you're in the right place. Today, you can join Carol Fairman and Dr. Guy Henry as they begin exploring what it means to lead with impact. So, pull up a chair, grab your coffee, a pen and paper, and get ready to have some deep conversations with Carol and Guy as they walk you through what it means to lead with impact. Welcome back to Lead with Impact. Today, we're going to wrap up our discussion on Lead with Rest, why Sabbath and self care fuel effective leadership. We talked about how rest is not a luxury, but a critical component in our effective leadership and our sustained growth. And without proper rest, leaders really risk burnout, diminished clarity, a decreased decision making abilities. And rest really allows us to recharge mentally, physically, emotionally, and it really enables us as leaders to approach challenges from fresh perspectives and renewed energy. So, prioritizing rest is not a sign of weakness, right? Dr. Guy helped us debunk that last time, but it's wisdom and it's ensuring that leaders can show up as their best self for the people and organizations that they serve. So, welcome back, Dr. Guy. We're ready to dig deep. And so, why don't you pull out a couple of those biblical foundations on rest for us?
Okay. I know we all know the story of the creation and how God rested on the seventh day. He's setting a model. The whole Bible is sets of principles that if we can understand those principles, we can apply them to our life. And so God is setting a standard. He's setting a principle for us to follow because we're created in his image. So that need for emphasizing time for rest. And it's physical rest, it's emotional rest, it's a time for spiritual renewal ultimately. So again, it's not a weakness, it's really investing into ourselves. And then we know the scripture in Ecclesiastes, right? I think it's chapter 3, verse 1. That the whole chapter 3, there's a time for everything.
Yes,
And so there is a time for rest. Are we taking that time? Are we stepping back? Maybe weekly. We should have something weekly. We should even do something monthly, if not, and maybe even quarterly, as we have talked in the past. Just something that is setting aside and giving us that moment of retreat, so we can just take in, rest physically, rest emotionally, and renew spiritually.
absolutely. And it reminds me, and I'm not sure, I'm quoting, I'm not sure who said this, but God's work done in God's way will never lack God's supply. And so
Oh.
that is such a powerful key for us as we've been talking about that. And so we were talking about how do the different leadership styles really
Mhm.
approach this opportunity for rest and what they need. What does that look like, Guy, for that supportive influencer, that leader that's very loyal, dependable, super focused on people, and always
Mm.
putting other people's needs first? What does that look like for that supportive leader?
For all leaders, for all of us who have moments of responsibilities where we're influencing other people, I just want to reiterate that rest is often misunderstood as not doing anything.
Right.
Rest is not a matter of not doing anything. It's more about stillness, getting still, or something that's the opposite of busy, because it's not a matter of doing nothing, but doing something that allows us to take that moment away, disconnect, and rejuvenate. And for that supportive leader, I think for all leaders, it's difficult to just to disconnect because we're all in our own styles are always out to do the next things, serve, be involved. And we tend to put ourselves as maybe lesser on the list of those we need to serve. And that is especially true for that supportive leader. Their nurturing nature, they need time to recharge. They need to be, because they need to be ready to continue serving and rest. That stillness really helps them process their emotions because that That supportive leader are often affected by the emotions because they're very
Yes.
empathetic. They need to disconnect from that so they can recharge themselves as well.
Because as those leaders, we tend to, in that supportive role, you're carrying everybody's burdens, right?
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
on top of what you already have going on with yourself. And so it is so important for that. And like you're saying, really, these do apply across the board to every leadership style. But as we're talking about and really looking at that supportive leader, we're
Mhm.
looking at rest through the lens of their perspective. And so it's hard for them to schedule alone time, right? Because they spend their whole time serving others. One of my favorite things about like working in ministry, we'll have an event. And so you're trying to clean up from an event. Everybody's tired. Everybody's ready to go home, but
Mhm.
nobody wants to be the first to leave because everybody's trying to do the cleanup. Or when you're at a conference and you're trying to get into the elevator and everybody's, no, you go first. No, you go first. No, you go first. And nobody gets anywhere because we're so busy putting someone else first. And I know it's not an exact rest example, but my goodness, that heart to serve others. And if we don't
Mhm.
schedule that alone time, it's really going to help us lose sight of what's important. And
Yeah.
so that and include that in dedicated time of prayer and meditation or
Mhm.
nature walk or whatever you need to do, but schedule that alone time and really learn to set those boundaries. No,
Right,
because
right.
so
Yeah,
it's an
that and that's the
investment.
biggest challenge, right, for that supportive style influencer leader is to say no because it's so contradicting their personality. They want to support. So here's an opportunity to support, but setting those boundaries, that's so true. To be able to say no, protect your rest time. Think of
Yes.
it more as an investment in your own longevity
Right.
rather than it's not about you, even though it is, but it's more of that investment in yourself and in alone time. Again, I don't want us to throw things in a little box. Sometimes
Right.
alone time can involve other people, like spending some time with your family, your loved ones, being able to, because that can be re-energizing. It's not
Exactly.
necessarily disconnect. But remember, because rest is not doing nothing. Rest is that disconnecting from the stress or the responsibilities or the pressures. But sometimes just having family time or creating some family traditions around the Sabbath concept, right?
Right.
Where we can, because today, how many families share the meals together? We're all coming and going, or how many still do family devotionals? Those can be very energizing for that supportive leader.
Yes, I love looking at from that lens because it really is an investment in your longevity, like you were talking about, and
Mhm.
involving the loved ones in that process. For me, Thursday night's date night, we've talked about that. That
Mhm.
is me just disconnecting from every label that I have but wife, right? And I just get
Uh-huh.
to be me, all of me, with my husband. And we are that rare family. We get together with our daughter and son in law and grandbabies once a week for family supper. Usually it's Sunday. This week we had a type A flu birthday party because our grandson was sick for his second birthday, but we prioritized being with family. We were already exposed. We uninvited everybody that wasn't, and we gathered anyway and made that little 2 year
Oh,
old
that's good.
feel the best he could be with the
Mhm.
flu. So it's about that intentionality. It looks different for every family and every walk of life. But when you're
Sure.
practicing those restorative habits, that's
Mhm.
where you're just going to recharge in ways, again, that God supply to get all those things done His way.
Mhm.
It really is a powerful and important tool that every leader really needs to implement, but that supportive leader really needs to allow themselves permission to
Yes.
disconnect because they're the ones that tend most not to naturally retreat for that time. And so when we
Yeah.
think
Uh-huh.
of that, Let's springboard into that more conscientious leader. And what does that detailed, really overthinking leader, what does that look like
Uh-huh.
for them, Guy? Because that's now we're going to completely shift gears because they tend to really
They're
don't mind
very
being alone with their thoughts. So what does that look like?
they're, as we've discussed with the different leadership styles, they're very conscientious. That's why we're saying that they're very cautious in what they do. And they're often the perfectionists. They're the ones that it's not done until it's perfect. But they're the ones that really, not that any more than others, we all have those needs. But they're because they like scheduling, they like having things in order, then really scheduling those things. Get it in your schedule, get it on your calendar, and something every week, maybe something quarterly, something. What's great, I think, for those leadership styles is to think that they got to have big picture time. And so I think maybe going to a conference, it's or a retreat. It
Mhm.
may not, again, it's not doing nothing, but it's feeding them where they can download because they're
Oh,
so
love it.
detail oriented, they're so analytical, and so they can struggle to let go of the work part because they're always striving. I can get one more thing done, but that's why I say, okay, put that one thing in there to say, now I'm not gonna do that. I'm going to pull back. And I'm gonna get that rest and
Right,
step back away and avoid some of that overthinking stuff
right,
because
right.
we lose clarity when we spend so much time detailing, even
Yes,
though that's their gift, promote that some innovation, right? It
yes.
allows them to be innovative, which they are by nature.
And so, really, I'm hearing that person should be planning ahead because they're already involved. They're very detailed oriented. So, why not just throw it
Yeah,
on your
use it.
calendar, right? Plan
Mhm,
ahead. Just recognizing that you're putting it on your calendar to just fully unplug, right?
mhm,
Especially on the Sabbath, where you're not worrying about all the loose ends that need to be tied up, but you're intentionally engaging in structured rest, right? Which is more
mhm,
aligned with that personality for that intentionality. It's just important for
mhm,
them and
mhm.
gives them that space that they need to really collect and organize their thoughts. And that can be done like with just different little things. For me, I love laundry day. Who says that? Who says that? Very few. But just having the time to fold everything neatly, put it back in its place, it just,
Mhm.
I'm
That
setting
makes sense.
myself up for success. And I feel that way about doing the dishes. I'm one of those rare women that rather hand wash dishes. It doesn't need to
Uh-huh.
be like 80 pounds of it, but just a small load, keeping busy, just, it just
Mhm,
allows me to unplug and re-engage and just see things from stepping
mhm.
back in a different from a different lens, that space. And so it's really an exercise in mindfulness, right?
Right,
Because
right.
we're able to step away, but then you could also do things like deep breathing and scriptural meditation, scripture writing, calm
Mhm.
music. And I'm sure you step away, Guy, and you're out there scrubby dubbing the motorcycle, right?
Actually, I just did that yesterday.
And how did that feel? Are you
Well,
feeling
yeah,
unplugged
I
to
felt like I
rest?
got something done, but at the same time, when you said something about organizing and doing
Yeah,
laundry. But again, that can be if we will allow ourselves as a conscientious type of leader to look at that as stepping away from, but I'm still doing, I am still organizing. That conscientious personality likes to have things in order. They like to have things clean, whether it's the dishes or the motorcycle, but they can find rest in the fact that they're being satisfied by getting something done. And so it is about that scheduling and dedicating that time. And let it be a time of reflection. You love scheduling anyway.
that's right. So you tap
So
into it. It's
let's
your
just
superpower.
schedule. And you like detail. I think a conscientious leader and influencer is a good person to journal and take notes. What are you doing for your own personal development? Because sometimes rest can be, again, not necessarily doing nothing, but maybe it's stepping away from the responsibilities for your own personal development.
Love
Again,
it.
I'm still doing something, I'm still being productive, but now I'm doing something for my personal development which tends to that task-oriented kind of personality. I'm still getting something done, but it's not under the stress of my responsibilities.
Excellent. And so, what a powerful conversation we've had over leading from rest, really, because that
Mhm.
is
Leading
where
from
our
rest.
power is, and our strength is going to come from. So, we're going to encourage you, friends, to dedicate a day of rest or a few hours to unplug,
Hmm.
but get that spiritual renewal. Schedule that day for reflection and visioning, and just use it for your benefit, for your good, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly. Find a rest system that's going to work for you. I know those conscientious leaders are like, I'm amazing at putting a system together, right? So
There you go.
they're going to get
Yep.
out there, but we just really want to encourage you to schedule that Sabbath.
Mm.
Treat yourself. Look at it as a treat. Again, God's work is done in His way, and we're never ever going to lack His supply when we are intentionally setting that time aside for Him. So, Guy, I'd
Hmm.
love you to give us some closing thoughts as we end today.
Sure. For all of us in all of our different personality styles and leadership styles and influencing styles, whether it's the family, the business, the ministry, if you don't schedule it, you won't do it. So definitely schedule it. And I'm going to end with a scripture, Matthew 11:28. Jesus
Mm.
says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." The purpose of the rest is to be able to get connected, to unload some of those burdens. So, whether that's taking a hike, washing the motorcycle, going on a retreat, fishing, or doing the laundry or cutting the grass, whatever that looks like for you, use it as that opportunity and receive from Him. And that way, I just know our strength and our energy, our motivation will be elevated. Rest is a hard thing for some leaders, but it is a very important thing for us as well.
Absolutely. And so, as we close this episode, we want you to take this episode, and we all know a leader. We all know a leader that's suffering and really could use these tips. We're going to ask you, when you see this episode in your news feed, or if it pops up in your podcast, YouTube channel kind of thing, we're asking, share it intentionally to a
Mhm.
leader that can be really fueled by this. Until next time.